What if I told you that you can buy a $1.2 million 12-unit multifamily property without using a bank? That is not fantasy. It is called creative financing, and it's how students like yourself, how beginners like yourself can buy their first multifamily property without jumping through all the hoops of working with a bank. I'm going to share with you 3 powerful strategies today. Strategy number 1 is I'm going to teach you how to buy your multifamily property without a bank. Strategy number 2 is I'm going to share with you how the seller becomes the bank for you. And thirdly, if you need help with the down payment, if you don't have the entire down payment, strategy number 3 is going to share with you how we can get the seller to assist you with the down payment. All right, you ready to get started? If you have any questions at any point about this training here, feel free to text me directly to Peter to 833-942-4516, and I'll get right back at you. Let's get started. All right, really before we get started, real quick here, I'm going to share with you this subject matter today is on creative financing. I will not be going over how to do no money down deals, okay? We will not be doing those because I'm not a big believer in them. I think they're too risky, okay? The fact that you could potentially be over leveraged, which could highly impact your cash flow and turning it negative really quickly, okay? So it's not a good idea, too risky. So in my opinion, you do need a little bit of money to do creative financing. Okay, not a whole lot, but you need a little. And number 2, having skin in the game. Okay, having a small down payment is a good thing. Okay, keeps you committed and it keeps your debt down to a safe level where you can actually afford the property and cash flow. Got it? All right, let's get started. Here is strategy number 1. It's called the Master Lease Agreement. It's my favorite, by the way. I've been using the Master Lease for over 20 years, and some of my personally largest deals were done with a Master Lease Agreement all around the country. And our students have made millions of dollars using the Master Lease. I will give you an example of that in a future video to be released soon. So I'm going to share with you right now what the Master Lease is. Okay, when to use it, and then I'll give you an example. Let's get started here. Okay, so the master lease is not a sale, okay? It's a lease, okay? Master lease agreement, okay? It's not a sale, so there are no capital gains taxes to be paid on the sale of the property, okay? You're gonna pay taxes only on the money given to the seller as earned income. Got it? Okay, so it's not a sale, it's a lease. You control the property without owning it. Okay, again, it's a lease because you're going to get what we call at closing equitable title, not legal title. Okay, because you're just leasing the property from the owner. And guess what? You're going to pay the owner a down payment. He'll give you the control of the property. And once you start owning and operating it, you get to collect the rents. You get to pay the expenses. You're going to pay the owner a lease payment, okay, every month like you would a mortgage, okay? And then the best part is all the cash flow after the expenses and lease payments are yours, okay? And if your master lease agreement is for 5 years and you're able to increase the NOI for the next 5 years and make it worth much more, the equity and the profits are yours too, okay? So phenomenal strategy if you know how to use it correctly, okay? Paperwork is so important when doing a master lease. Okay, here's when to use it. So you're going to use it when the seller's property is not bankable. Okay, let me explain that. Let's say the seller's property needs lots of repairs. Okay, a lot of repairs. The bank won't lend on it because of all the repairs. Okay, let's say that the seller has a lot of vacancies. It's a 12-unit property and he has 7 vacancies. The bank's not going to lend on that, right? Not enough cash flow. Or number 3, the seller has 0 financial documentation, right? No income, no expense reports to be given. The banks won't lend on that either. So when your seller is not bankable, the master lease is an ideal way to buy a property if the deal still checks out. Okay, if you have a motivated seller and you see the potential in the property and you can fix it and make it worth more, but you can't get a bank loan, that's the way to go. Okay, the second reason is, what if the seller wants to sell? Okay, so you contact the seller, he goes, yeah, I want to sell, but Peter, I don't want to pay capital gains taxes, right? That is a solution, right? The solution is the master lease because it's not a sale, it's a lease. Okay, so you can take control of the property and cash flow it as if it's yours, right? And it's not a sale, so there's no capital gains taxes to be paid other than giving the seller a down payment and make those monthly payments. Yes, pay taxes on that, but there's no capital gains taxes to pay from the purchase price, the lease price, and what he owes. Okay. All right. Or how about this? This third one here. The seller wants to sell, right, but keep a form of income from the property, right? Isn't this great? So you can actually do this with a master lease, because when you make the lease payment to the seller, guess what? This is a payment to him while he's no longer involved with the property, had nothing to do with it anymore, right? And he wants to get rid of it, but he wants to maintain income. You're going to pay him a lease payment. Okay. All right. So that's the beauty of master lease. It is so expansive in how you can use it. You guys have always heard me say this, that when a motivated seller and a motivated buyer come together, beautiful things can happen, and the master lease agreement can be a beautiful thing for you. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to give you a quick example. Let's do that next. Every successful commercial real estate investor has a mentor. Get mentored by me and my team by applying to be our next protege. Click the top corner. All right, behind me is an example of a master lease agreement deal. But before I go there, I want to make sure you understand something, okay? This is not a master lease option, MLO, lease option. It is not an option, okay? There's no option here. So do not call it a master lease option or similar to it. It's really not similar because there is no option here, okay? There's an agreement here. The agreement is to give the seller money, and he gives us control of the property. We buy it, we fix it up, and at the end of said period, or lease agreement period, we pay him off. Okay, there's no option. We're not going to back out of this deal and give him back the property. There's no option. There's no option fee. Okay, so it's the master lease agreement. Just want to get that clear. Okay, so do not confuse the two. All right, so here is an example of a master lease agreement. It's a 12-unit property. $1.2 million, and let's say we have a motivated seller. Okay, all right, here we go. All right, so the basic terms that we're going to use, these are our default terms that we teach our students to use. Okay, so basically 10% down payment, okay, 5% interest rate, okay, on the balance that we owe the seller, and we're going to do this for 5 years. Okay, so 10% down, 5% interest rate on what we owe the seller, and for 5 years. We call this the 10-5-5. Okay? All right. So down payment is 10%. So $1.2 million, 10% of that is $120,000. Okay? We're going to owe the seller $1,080,000. So how that was calculated was $1.2 million minus the down payment equals $1,080,000. Okay? And we had to pay this off in 5 years. Okay? The lease payment is $4,500 a month, and how that worked out is we're going to calculate $1,080,000 times 5%. Okay, divided by 12 months. That's $4,500 a month. Got it? All right. Okay, and at the end of the 5th year, guess what? We have to pay off the seller. Okay, because it's a 5-year seller financing agreement. Okay, and the extra strategy, which is really important. The most important thing that you need to get, and that sellers mess up most of the time when you're doing seller financing or creative financing, is having a good exit strategy that's conservative, that's predictable. You probably need someone like us telling you how to design your exit strategy. Okay, no guessing allowed. Okay, all right. Let's see. The exit strategy here, and just keep it simple, is at the end of the 5th year, we're going to pay off the seller by getting a long-term loan. Okay, so we're going to buy the property year 1, and by year 5, we're going to improve the property, increase the rents, increase the NOI, make the property worth more. So when it comes time to qualify for a loan, a permanent loan, the property is in a very good position. Okay, the bank will give you a loan, and you can get a long-term loan and pay off the seller and own the property. Okay, legally this time with legal title. Okay. All right. Here's a quick example I'm going to give you. Okay. Let's say this 12-unit property brings in $130,000 a year. Okay. Expenses are about $60,000 a year. Okay. The NOI is 70,000. So 130 minus 60 is 70. Right. Now from the NOI, we're going to subtract $4,500 times 12, which is 54,000. Okay. So the NOI minus your master lease agreement payment, your lease payment, cash flow is $16,000 per year, or about $1,300 a month. Okay, not bad for a 12 unit. Okay, so if the cash and cash return, if you take your annual cash flow of 16,000 and divide it by your down payment, you get a cash and cash return of 13.3%. Pretty good. That's your return on investment. Not too shabby, right? So with 10% down, you're making a 13% return on your 120,000. You have complete control of the property. And guess what? You get most of all the tax benefits too. You don't get depreciation, but everything else you get. Okay, so with your tax deductions, you can very well not even pay taxes on this $16,000. Got it? Okay, that's the beauty of the master lease agreement. I want to go on to strategy number 2. Here we are with strategy number 2. This is called the seller carry first mortgage. Okay, it works best when there is no loan on the property. Okay, this is the technique where the seller becomes the bank for you. Okay, so in a master lease is designed as if there is a loan on the property. You can put your master lease agreement around the loan. On this seller carry first mortgage, there's no loan on the property. It's owned free and clear. So you're going to put a new loan on the property and the seller will be the bank for you. Okay, got it? All right. All right. So in this case, this is a sale. Okay. And the first strategy in master lease agreement was not a sale. Okay. So there's really no capital gains to pay. In this situation, this will be classified as a sale. Okay. And here, the seller is your bank. Okay, the seller will become the bank. And again, it's designed for properties with no loans on them, owned free and clear by the seller. And just like when you get a bank loan, you're getting a loan from the seller. Okay, you make monthly payments to the seller. Okay, and you need to treat this like a typical mortgage. Okay, so here's the quick setup. You meet the seller. The seller agrees to do seller financing. He has no loan on the property. You give him a down payment, okay? And then he gives you a mortgage, okay? You pay on the mortgage just like you would in a regular bank. So the seller becomes the bank for you, okay? So you can have 10% down, 25% down. You can have whatever interest rate you and the seller will like it to be, okay? Because remember, there's no traditional bank surrounding. The seller is the bank. So whatever terms you and the seller can come up with works. Also, it's up to you to get an appraisal. You don't have to go through the bank committee to get approval. So it's basically the seller approving you. That's all. Okay, so great advantages to doing this seller carry first mortgage. Okay, all right. Now, when is it best to use a seller carry first mortgage? Here we are. Let's say the property won't qualify for a bank loan. Okay, let's say the financials are really bad, right? Let's say it's managed very poorly, right? So when you look at the income expenses, it looks really bad, where a bank won't touch it, but the seller wants to sell. Okay, and you would do a seller carry first mortgage. The lender becomes the bank. Okay, so let's say that the property needs a lot of repairs. Okay, where there's so much repairs that the banks will become uncomfortable and will not give you the best terms, okay, on the loan. So you would do a seller carry first mortgage. Okay, that could be one, or it could be this. Let's say the seller wants to be the bank for you. Okay, that happens, and the seller wants to create interest income for him or herself. Okay, again, when the seller becomes the bank, you're making monthly payments to the seller. Okay, and then that seller that's interest income. Seller gets this passive income every month from you. So and not own the property any longer. Okay, but he's still getting paid. Okay, or how about number 3? Seller informs you he's open to seller financing because he's owned it free and clear. So he can do whatever he wants with this property, right? Some older sellers are okay with that, right? They want to sell it their way. So many ways you can structure a deal if it's owned free and clear and you have a willing seller. Okay. Again, you have a motivated buyer, that's you. You have a motivated seller, beautiful things can be created. Okay. All right. So that is the seller carry first. Let me give you a quick example of what that will look like. Ever wondered how pro investors find and analyze deals for maximum profit? How to secure financing even if you're a beginner? Or attract and keep tenants for steady passive income? Commercial Real Estate for Beginners delivers simple, actionable steps to master it all. Tap the link on the top corner for your free copy today. Here's my quick example of a seller carry first mortgage strategy deal, and I'm going to use the same 12-unit property at $1.2 million. Okay, all right, so here we are, 12-unit, 1.2 million. Down payment can be, like I said, uh, treat it like a normal bank, but with seller care first mortgage, it's between you and the seller. So whatever you guys come up with is what the terms will be. Okay, so you don't have to use the traditional bank financing terms. You can make up the terms, whatever you guys are coming in agreement with. So we do it between 10 and 25%. Okay, and the interest rate, I've seen it range from 3% up to 8%. Again, okay, it's up to you and the seller. Amortize over 25 or 30 years. And the balloon payment, when the loan comes due, I've seen it again between 3 years fixed up to 30 years fixed. I've seen that before. Okay, we've done it. All right, so again, treat it just like a bank. Okay, but the seller is the bank for you. Okay, all right, so instead of going to Chase Bank or Bank of America or your local bank, the seller is the bank for you. Okay, now let's say I give you a quick example here. Purchase price 1.2 million. Let's say you're going to do a 20% down payment. That's $240,000. We're going to do interest rate of 6%, right? And it could be anywhere between 3 and 8. We come up with 6%. And let's say we want to be a little creative, right? Because we want to have a little lower monthly payment the first year to catch up with the cash flow. What we can do is we can request to the seller to let us do interest-only payments for the first year, right? And then after the first year, we can do full 30-year amortized payments, okay? So again, just being creative. Now, since this is a seller care first mortgage, sometimes there's a prepay penalty, right? Because the seller wants to just collect the income for said period of time. So let's say that, for the first 3 years, there's a prepay penalty of like 5%. So what it does, it disincentivizes you to pay it off within the first 3 years. Okay, whatever this penalty is. So after the first 3 years, then you could pay the seller off. Okay. Now here's the warning on this, because it's like you treating it like a bank loan. The seller can foreclose on you if you stop making payments. Okay, just like if you stop making your mortgage payments from the bank, the seller's the bank, he can also foreclose on you. Okay, it's very possible. He can charge you late fees. He can do everything a bank does. Okay. The exit strategy is the same too. Let's say we're gonna buy this property with seller carry first mortgage. We're gonna hold it for 7 years. We're gonna stabilize it, make it more beautiful, raise the rents, make it worth more of the 7 years. Then we're gonna sell it and do a 1031 exchange. Basically, we can defer all the capital gains taxes that we're gonna have if we sold and took the profits. We can do a 1031 exchange and defer those capital gains taxes and buy a much larger property and then repeat the process. Okay, so again, a seller carry first mortgage is just like any other bank except the seller becomes the bank. The advantage is you can be as creative as you and the seller can come in agreement with. Got it? All right, let's go to the third and last strategy. All right, here is the last one. The third strategy, seller carry second mortgage. This is when a bank is involved. But in this situation, you don't have all of the bank's down payment requirement. You only have some of it. Okay, so in a seller carries second mortgage, you can bring in what you have to meet the bank requirement, and the seller can contribute the other half of the down payment and carry it as a mortgage, as a second mortgage. Okay, so the bank will give you a first mortgage, and then the seller will give you a second mortgage, satisfying the bank requirement of the full down payment. Okay, so that's how it works. All right, now, so let me explain it to you. So this again. Seller carries second mortgage. The seller helps you with the down payment if you're short. So if you don't have to wait until you have the entire down payment. If we have a motivated seller, okay, they can help you. So you're going to end up with two loans on the property, okay? And I'll share with you in a second what that looks like. And you need to pay on both loans, okay? So you got to make sure on this type of deal, this property with the incoming rent and the expenses you have to pay, that this property can pay for the first mortgage and the second mortgage. Okay, you got two mortgages on here. Okay, all right. And then the extra strategy, as with anything creative, is so important. This is where people mess up all the time. Okay, so extra strategy on the seller carries second mortgage is when the seller carries a mortgage for you, at a certain point, you got to pay it off. Okay, so that means you either have to come out of pocket and pay off the seller to get them off, or you have to create enough equity in the property that you bought and then do a cash out refinance or sell the property and pay the seller off. Okay, so how you design the extra strategy should be done at the very beginning. Okay, we can help you with that. All right. Okay, here's a quick example. We're going to use the same 12-unit property at 1.2 million, and the bank requirement in the typical bank situations, they want 25% down. Okay, so 25% of $1.2 million is 300,000. So the bank will do the loan, right? If you put down 300,000, they'll give you a loan for 900,000. Okay, which is 1.2 minus 300,000. Okay, follow me so far? Just like buying a house. Okay, but here's where it gets different. Okay, so you don't have the entire 25%. You only have 15%, which is 180,000. So you're going to bring that to the closing table, and then the seller is going to carry their other 10%. So 15 plus 10 is 25%, right? So the seller is going to carry the 10% of the 1.2, 120,000. So the entire $300,000 bank requirement is met. Okay, this is called a seller carry second mortgage. So you're going to have a first loan from the bank at 900,000, then you're going to have a second loan from the seller at 120,000. Okay, so that way you can leverage yourself into the property. Again, if we have a motivated seller, oftentimes when you're looking online or you're talking to seller directly, if they say things like, I'm willing to hold a second, what that means is they're willing to do a seller carry second mortgage. If they say something like, I'm willing to hold paper. Okay, when they say I'm willing to hold paper, that means seller carry second mortgage. Whenever they say I'm willing to do some seller financing if you need help in closing a deal, that means they're willing to help you close a deal by carrying a seller carry second mortgage. Got it? All right, so all three are very important if you want to leverage your knowledge and leverage yourself into a property as a beginner. Got it? All right, so I shared with you the first strategy being a master lease agreement. Okay, the second strategy was a seller carry first mortgage, where the seller becomes the bank for you. All right, and then the seller carry second mortgage is when when the seller helps you with the down payment. Got it? All right, hope you enjoyed this video, and if you are still here with me, you are my favorite type of viewer, so I appreciate you so much. All right, so if you want to learn more about commercial real estate or multifamily investing, click on the subscribe button. Go ahead and hit the like button. That encourages us to put more content out there for you. All right, everyone, I'll see you at the next video. Would you like to work with me? Every successful commercial real estate investor has a mentor. Learn more about my protege program right here.